Have you ever stepped into a place and felt like you were completely invisible? Not in some deep philosophical, we're all just tiny specks in the vast universe kind of way, but literally like you're standing there, a full grown adult, breathing, existing, and yet somehow no one even notices you. That's exactly what happened to Jerome Wilson today. At 47, this man was successful beyond measure, a titan in his industry, and yet in this one fleeting moment, he was utterly, painfully invisible. Can you imagine the sting of that? The kicker? This wasn't just any old hotel where this happened, no way. This was one of the crown jewels of a hospitality empire that Jerome had built from nothing, brick by brick, with his own sweat and determination. We're talking a 5-star paradise, the kind of place that makes you feel like royalty, where a single night's stay costs more than most folks' monthly rent. And yet, here was Jerome, standing at the front desk of his own creation, waiting to be acknowledged like some stray dog that had wandered in off the street. How does that even happen? This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment visit. Oh no, Jerome had a purpose. He'd been getting complaints, piles of them, not just one or two, but a relentless stream, all pointing to this particular hotel like a neon sign flashing trouble. Guests were being treated like second-class citizens, staff were throwing around attitude like it was confetti, and rooms mysteriously unavailable for certain customers. Sounds suspicious? You bet it does. Jerome could have done what most CEOs do. Pick up the phone, call the manager, schedule some boring internal audit, toss around a few corporate buzzwords, and hope the problem magically fixed itself. But Jerome? He wasn't that guy. He knew problems like this didn't just vanish, they festered, and they needed to be dragged into the light. So, what did he do? He showed up unannounced, no fancy suit, no stretch limo, no entourage trailing behind him, just Jerome, blending in like any regular guy checking in for the night. And boy, did he get a front row seat to his company's so-called world-class service. The front desk was run well, sort of by a blonde 20-something named Kim, whose entire vibe screamed, "I am not paid enough to care about you or anyone else in this lobby." She was slouched back in her chair, phone in hand, texting or scrolling through who knows what, doing everything in her power to avoid eye contact with the human being standing right in front of her. Can you believe the audacity? Jerome stood there, patient as a saint. He waited. He cleared his throat. Nothing. He tapped the desk. Still nothing. Finally, he spoke up, calm as ever. "All right, excuse me." And what did Kim do? She let out a sigh so loud it could have woken a coma patient. The kind of sigh you say for people who dare interrupt your very busy schedule of doing absolutely nothing. She dragged her eyes up to meet his, blinking like Jerome had just popped into existence out of thin air. "Yeah? That's it. Not welcome to our luxurious hotel. Not how can I assist you today. Just yeah." Like he was some annoying inconvenience. Can you feel the disrespect dripping off that one word? Jerome, cool as a cucumber, kept his voice steady. "I have a reservation. Jerome Wilson." Kim barely hid a smirk. Can you imagine? As she turned to her computer and started typing with all the enthusiasm of a sedated sloth. Yeah, nope. Don't see it. Jerome raised an eyebrow, not missing a beat. "You sure about that?" "Pretty sure." She shot back, not even bothering to look up, already back to scrolling on her phone like the conversation was over. Who does that? That's when it hit him. This wasn't some innocent mix-up. This wasn't the system acting up. This was deliberate. Kim had taken one quick glance at him and decided, nah, this guy's not worth my time. Can you feel the weight of that moment? Jerome sighed, keeping his face neutral, though you know his blood was probably starting to simmer. "All right, check again." Kim rolled her eyes, rolled them, but humored him, tapping at the keyboard like it was the biggest chore of her life. "Nope, still nothing." Sorry. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded bored out of her mind. "Jerome, still calm, pulled out his phone and scrolled to his confirmation email. "I have my booking right here," he said, holding it up for her to see. Did Kim care? Barely. She gave it the quickest glance, like it was a minor annoyance. "Yeah, well, the system doesn't lie." "Oh, but Jerome wasn't having it." "Neither does my damn email," he fired back, his voice still even but with that edge that says, "Don't test me." Kim let out another exaggerated sigh seriously. How many sighs does this woman have? And said, "Look, sir, maybe you made a mistake. It happens. Maybe you booked the wrong location. Happens all the time." Jerome tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. "You saying I'm lost?" Can you picture the tension in that moment? Kim flashed that condescending little smirk, the kind people use when they think they're talking to someone they can walk all over. "I'm saying it's an easy mistake to make." Jerome clenched his jaw, taking a slow, deep breath. "And if I wasn't lost? If my reservation was here all along?" She shrugged, and said, "Then I guess the system glitched." A glitch? Really? Jerome knew better. That system didn't glitch, people did. Something about the way Kim wouldn't meet his eyes, the way she refused to double-check, the way she dismissed him so effortlessly was all too familiar. He'd seen this before, hadn't he? This wasn't about a glitch. This was about him. In the span of 5 seconds, Kim had decided he didn't belong in this fancy hotel, that he wasn't worth proper service, not even a second glance. Can you imagine the frustration boiling inside him? Jerome had dealt with this kind of treatment before the unspoken rules of customer service, where some people's mistakes get fixed with a smile, while others, like him, get ignored. Normally, he'd let it slide, right? Pick your battles, stay above the fray. But today? Oh, today was different. He wasn't about to let this go. Jerome reached for his second phone, the one with full access to the hotel's internal system. He tapped in his credentials, and there it was. Clear as day, his reservation, booked and confirmed. But wait, there was more. Curiosity got the better of him, so he checked the activity log. And what did he find? Reservation manually deleted by Kim, front desk clerk. Bingo. Can you feel the satisfaction of that discovery? Jerome glanced at Kim's name tag, barely holding back a smirk. "Oh, Kim, you have no idea what's coming." He took a deep breath, forcing a smile that probably sent chills down her spine. "Tell me something, Kim," he said, his voice calm but loaded with intent. "HM?" she mumbled, still tapping away on her phone like nothing was wrong. "What happens when you delete a reservation?" She barely looked up. "Oh, it just removes it from the system. No big deal." "No big deal? Really?" Jerome nodded, playing along. "And who has the ability to do that?" Kim shrugged, oblivious to the trap she was walking into. "Only front desk staff, obviously. Like yourself?" She blinked, finally sensing something was off. Yeah. Why?" Jerome tapped his screen one last time, pulled up the damning log, and turned the phone around. Her eyes darted to the screen, and for the first time that night, she looked nervous, really nervous. There it was, in black and white, her name, right next to the deletion. Kim swallowed hard, her face paling. Jerome leaned in just a bit, his voice low and sharp. "So, tell me, Kim, why the hell did you delete my reservation?" "Gotcha." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no words came out. For the first time all night, she was speechless completely, gloriously speechless. Jerome smirked, savoring the moment. Oh, this was going to be one hell of a night. He'd seen a lot in his life, but this was next level. He stood there watching Kim squirm, trying to act like she wasn't absolutely caught. And honestly, part of him almost felt bad for her. Almost. But come on, she dug this hole herself, and now she was going to have to lie in it. Kim kept blinking at the screen, her fingers twitching like she could somehow undo the digital crime she'd committed. But there was no back button for this one, was there? I didn't, she stammered. But Jerome wasn't having it. Don't even try it, Kim. He cut her off. And the way she flinched, pure poetry. Save it, he said, shutting her down. She clamped her mouth shut so fast he nearly laughed out loud. He took a step back, took a deep breath, and calmed himself because, let's be real, he wanted to go off. He wanted to let every single person in that fancy lobby know exactly what had just happened. But no, not yet. This needed finesse, didn't it? Instead, he leaned on the counter, flashing a smile that was equal parts charm and menace. Here's what's going to happen, Kim. She gulped, actually gulped. You're going to find me a room, right now. She hesitated. But when he just stared at her, unblinking, she scrambled to type, her fingers shaking so much you could hear them clattering on the keyboard. Okay. She muttered. Speak up, he said, his voice firm. I found a room, she stammered. Of course you did, he replied, dripping with sarcasm. She grabbed a key card and shoved it across the counter, avoiding his gaze like her life depended on it. Here you go, sir. He didn't touch it. Which room? 1427, she mumbled. He sighed. The worst room in the building? Really, Kim? Kim froze, realizing she'd been caught again. She thought she was slick, didn't she? Room 1427 was the absolute worst, right by the noisy elevators, next to the maintenance closet, with a stunning view of the dumpster out back. But Jerome? He knew every inch of this hotel. Hell. He'd designed the floor plan himself. This wasn't just a mistake, it was textbook pettiness. Kim, he said, tilting his head. Do I look stupid to you? Her face twisted in panic. No, Then why the hell are you trying to play me like I don't know exactly what you just did? Boom. Dead silence. The lobby was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Other guests started to notice the tension, didn't they? A couple on the nearby couches glanced over, pretending they weren't eavesdropping. A bellboy in the corner suddenly became obsessed with adjusting his tiny hat. Jerome slowly picked up the keycard, his movements deliberate. Thanks, Kim, he said, his voice calm but loaded. And with that, he turned and headed for the elevators. But was this over? Not by a long shot. The second he stepped into his room, Jerome pulled out his laptop. This was his hotel, his empire. And someone had the nerve to treat him like a nobody? Oh, hell no. It was time to dig. He pulled up the hotel's internal records, staff complaints, guest complaints, manager reports, everything tied to this location. And guess whose name was plastered everywhere? Kim's. Front desk agent dismissed a guest complaint without logging it. Guest reported racial discrimination at check-in. Staff involved. Kim. Kim refused service to a guest, citing hotel policy with no documentation. Kim involved in multiple disputes over system errors with reservations. This wasn't just incompetence, she was malicious. How was she still employed? Jerome scrolled further, and there it was, the answer. The manager, Stephen Lane. A spineless corporate yes-man who avoided confrontation like it was his job. Translation? Kim had been a problem forever, but no one had the guts to fire her. Well, that was about to change. Jerome was going to handle this himself, wasn't he? He strolled back to the lobby, taking his sweet time, letting the anticipation build. Kim was still at the desk, probably thinking she'd gotten away with it. Wrong! He walked right past her, didn't even glance her way, and marched straight into the manager's office. No knock. Why would he? Stephen Lane, a middle-aged guy radiating I peaked in high school energy, looked up from his desk and nearly jumped out of his skin. "Mr. Wilson, what a surprise!" Jerome shut the door behind him and leaned against it, his presence filling the room. "Cut the crap, Stephen. We need to talk. Can you feel the intensity? Can you imagine the sheer panic in Stephen Lane's eyes when Jerome Wilson leaned against that office door, his presence filling the room like a storm about to break?" Stephen swallowed hard, his throat bobbing like he was choking on his own excuses. "Of course. What can I do?" he stammered, his voice trembling with that fake confidence managers use when they know they're in deep trouble. Jerome's eyes narrowed, his arms crossed tight over his chest. "You know what's happening at your front desk?" he asked, his tone sharp enough to cut through the tension. Stephen blinked, his face a mask of confusion. Well, I think everything is." "Wrong answer," Jerome snapped, his voice like a whip. "Can you feel the heat of that moment? I just had my own reservation deleted by one of your employees." Stephen's face went pale, ghostly white, like he'd seen his career flash before his eyes. "I what? Who?" he sputtered, his voice barely a whisper. Jerome grinned, a slow, dangerous smile that promised trouble. "Take a wild guess." Stephen's mouth opened and closed, flopping like a fish out of water, desperate for an answer that wouldn't bury him. It was Kim, wasn't it?" Ding, ding, ding. "Got it in one, Stephen." Stephen winced, his shoulders slumping like a man who knew he was about to take a fall. "Listen, Mr. Wilson, I was going to handle it, I swear, but she's been Jerome's hand shot up, cutting him off mid-sentence. "Shut up," he barked, and Stephen clamped his mouth shut so fast you could hear his teeth click. Jerome took a deep breath, letting the silence hang heavy in the air, thick with the weight of Stephen's failure. "You've had complaints about her for months, maybe even years, and you did nothing. Can you believe that? Years of letting this mess fester under his nose." Stephen looked like he was staring down his own execution, his eyes wide, pleading for mercy. I thought maybe she just needed more training," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "Training?" Jerome laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound that echoed off the office walls. "Dude, this woman isn't some confused intern who forgot how to use the damn software. She's a problem. And she's your problem. Oh, the burn of that truth." Stephen looked like he wanted to melt into the floor, to disappear into the tacky carpet and never be seen again. Jerome let out a long, slow breath, his eyes locked on the trembling manager. He nodded, his decision made. "So, here's how this is going to go down, Stephen. You're going to walk out there and you're going to fire her. Right now, in front of everyone." Stephen's jaw dropped, his mouth hanging open like a broken hinge. "Right now?" he squeaked, his voice cracking. "Right now," Jerome repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Stephen hesitated, his eyes darting around like he was searching for an escape hatch. But one look at Jerome's unyielding stare told him there was no way out. He nodded, defeated, and shuffled toward the door like a man headed to the gallows. And so, just 2 minutes later, the entire lobby became a stage for justice. Can you picture it? Every guest, every staff member, every pair of eyes glued to the scene as Stephen, sweating bullets, marched up to Kim and dropped the hammer. Kim's face twisted in shock. She tried to argue, her voice rising in a desperate pitch. She tried to cry, tears welling up as she played the victim card. She even tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, but it didn't matter. Her time was up, her ass was out, and there was no coming back from this one. Jerome stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the whole thing unfold with a satisfied smirk that said, "You brought this on yourself." As Kim stormed toward the exit, her face a mess of anger and humiliation, she threw one last hateful glance over her shoulder. Jerome? He just smiled, cool as ice. Because tonight justice had been served, and oh, was it sweet. The best part? Kim still had no clue who the hell she'd just crossed. Can you imagine the look on her face when she finds out? Jerome watched her go, her heels clicking furiously against the polished floor as she vanished into the night. Damn, it was glorious. Justice had been served, hot and fresh, but deep down something nagged at him. Was it enough? Sure, Kim was gone, but she had no idea who just dismantled her career. And firing one bad apple didn't fix the rot at the core of this hotel, did it? Jerome wasn't here just for revenge, no way. He was here to save his empire, to rebuild what he'd worked so hard to create. Stephen, still looking like he needed a stiff drink or maybe an entire bottle, turned to Jerome, wiping sweat from his forehead with a shaky hand. I handled it, he said weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Jerome smirked, his eyes glinting with amusement. No, Stephen, I handled it. You just stood there looking constipated. Stephen let out a nervous chuckle like he thought Jerome was joking. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. You know, I could fire you too, Jerome continued, his tone casual but laced with a warning, for letting this hotel turn into a customer service nightmare. Stephen swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing like a buoy in a storm. I swear, Mr. Wilson, I'll fix everything, he pleaded, his voice dripping with desperation. Jerome raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. That's cute, but you won't be fixing anything, Stephen. I will. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Stephen to marinate in his own failure. By now, the lobby had settled into an awkward hush, the kind of silence that follows a bombshell. Guests were trying not to stare, but come on, this was better than reality TV. Jerome headed straight for the front desk and leaned over the counter, his presence commanding the attention of every clerk in sight. Listen up, he said, his voice firm and clear. Things are about to change around here. Fast. Can you feel the shift in the air? A young guy, maybe early 20s, nodded quickly, his eyes wide with nerves. Yes, sir. Do you work for corporate? He asked, his voice trembling. Jerome grinned, a spark of mischief in his eyes. Something like that. He grabbed the hotel phone and dialed a number, the line clicking instantly. This is Wilson, he said, his voice all business. Shut this hotel down for a full-scale audit. I want every guest compensated, every complaint reviewed, and every employee reevaluated. If they can't cut it, they're gone. Effective immediately. Boom! Just like that, he dropped a bomb on the whole operation. The entire staff froze, jaws on the floor. Wait, one of the clerks stammered, her voice shaking. Jerome pocketed his phone and flashed a smile that was equal parts charm and power. Yeah, I'm that Jerome Wilson. Silence. Absolute deafening silence. One woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The young guy's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates, like he'd just seen a celebrity. Stephen? He looked like he was about to pass out, his face a sickly shade of green. Jerome straightened his jacket, soaking in every second of their shock. Now, if you'll excuse me, he said, heading toward the elevator with a swagger. I have a business to clean up. And with that, he was gone. Can you imagine the chaos he left behind? The second Jerome stepped into the elevator, he could feel the tension in the lobby behind him, the weight of realization crashing over everyone like a tidal wave. He could practically hear their thoughts. Oh shit, that was the Jerome Wilson. As the doors slid shut, he smirked. Perfect. This was exactly the wake-up call they needed, wasn't it? By the time he reached his suite, his phone was buzzing like a beehive corporate bigwigs, his board of directors, probably Stephen begging for a lifeline. He ignored them all, let them sweat, let them wonder what was coming next. Instead, he pulled out his laptop and logged into the system, ready to clean house. First up, Kim, blacklisted. She wasn't just fired, she'd never set foot in one of his hotels again. Not as an employee, not as a guest, not ever. Stephen? He was hanging by a thread, one last chance to prove he wasn't a total waste of space. But Jerome wasn't holding his breath. Then he dove into the guest complaints. And oh, Did they make his blood boil? Some of these people had been disrespected, ignored, flat out mistreated, treated like they didn't matter. That wasn't just bad business, that was personal. Jerome made damn sure every single one of them was refunded, comped, and given VIP status for their next stay. Because that's how you run an empire, isn't it? You take care of your people. A knock at the door interrupted his work. Stephen, his face white as a sheet, stood there looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Mr. Wilson, please. I had no idea. Jerome leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. That's the problem, Stephen. You had no idea what was happening in your own damn hotel. Stephen gulped, his hands trembling. I can fix this, sir, I swear. Jerome tilted his head, sizing him up. You fired Kim? Yes. Stephen nodded furiously, clinging to that one shred of hope. Just like you asked. Jerome smirked, but there was no warmth in it. Good. Now pack your shit. Stephen froze, his eyes wide with horror. What? You heard me. You're done. You let this place rot under your nose. You should have cleaned it up before I had to. Stephen's face crumpled, his mouth working but no words coming out. But, Mr. Wilson, please, Jerome clapped him on the shoulder, his grip firm. Relax, Steve. I'm sure there's a motel somewhere that'll love your leadership skills. Stephen staggered back, speechless, as Jerome shut the door in his face with a satisfying thud. No more second chances, not in his empire. Jerome poured himself a drink, the amber liquid catching the light as he sat back and exhaled. The hotel would be better, stronger. The business would rise from this mess like a phoenix. And the next time some front desk clerk thought they could pull that kind of stunt, they'd think twice, wouldn't they? Because now everybody knew exactly who the hell Jerome Wilson was. Oh, the audacity of indifference. The story of Jerome Wilson's experience at his own hotel burns with a raw truth about how people are treated or mistreated based on snap judgments. It's infuriating to see how Kim's dismissive attitude reflects a broader societal issue, the lazy, prejudiced assumptions that strip people of their dignity in everyday interactions. I'm fired up because this isn't just about a hotel reservation, it's about respect, or the glaring lack of it. How dare someone decide another person's worth in 5 seconds flat, based on nothing but their own biases? It's a gut punch to know this happens daily, especially to those who fought tooth and nail to build something extraordinary, like Jerome did. What gets me even more is the systemic failure. Stephen's spineless inaction is a neon sign screaming that too many leaders turn a blind eye to toxic behavior. It's maddening. This isn't just a workplace issue, it's a moral one. We need to call out this nonsense loudly. Everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and valued, no matter who they are or what they look like. Jerome's response? Pure fire. He didn't just expose the rot, he torched it, demanding accountability with a fierceness that makes my heart race. That's the kind of leadership we need, bold, unapologetic, and rooted in justice. I'm inspired, but also challenged. We've got to live with eyes wide open, confronting prejudice and negligence in our own circles. Let's be the ones who build empires of respect, not empires of apathy. This story isn't just a wake-up call, it's a battle cry for a world where no one feels invisible. Who's with me?